When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
Hi, I'm IIdiko Susany. I'm the staff writer on Virgin River Season 6, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest is a multi-talented writer, actor, filmmaker, and theater performer. And she may have just recently landed her biggest break as a staff writer on Season 6 of Netflix's big hit romantic drama, Virgin River. Let's welcome IIdiko Susany. So, IIdiko, we got a little bit of a big deal going on for you with now being a full-time writer for Virgin River. So,
Yes.
how are we feeling? Where are we at with writing of Season 6? What's going on currently with that?
Yeah, so we finished writing the season end of last year. We had to take a break because of the strikes. We had the WGA strikes last year. And then when we came back with a good deal, we got back to work and finished the season. We're pretty excited about it. And we're set to start shooting early this year.
Okay. Do we have any idea of the release of the season? Because obviously you just said going to be starting to shoot soon. So do you know what kind of timeline we're working with?
I'm not sure yet if Netflix has released any of those details, so I think we're waiting to see what they say.
Right on. Now, do you think, because obviously you've been around as a script and clearance coordinator in season 4, wrote in season 5, episode 9, Angel's Peak, which was close to home with your personality. So, are we continuing storylines, or how would you describe this show? Is it a episode to episode or season to season? Like, say, and the reason I ask that, I'm thinking of American Horror Story, where each season was different.
Right. Yeah, I think Virgin River is very like serialized. So in some ways, you know, it's set in a small town. It's a gentle romance drama. So in some ways, you know, time moves quite slowly. I think one of the things people say about it is, you know, Charmaine, one of our characters, has been pregnant for like 5 seasons. So everything moves quite slowly. It's sort of you know, sometimes it's kind of just a day in the life of these characters. And so we really do have these great cliffhangers that kind of propel us to the next episode and the next season.
Okay. You know, that kind of sounds like a joke my mom would tell when she does try to tell a joke, because there was always a running gag in the family saying she was pregnant with me for 2.5 years. Well, they said because parents got married, oh, she must be pregnant, but I didn't show up for 2.5 years later, so hell of a pregnancy. Right. But looking forward to that when the season comes out and when Netflix announces that and all that fun stuff. But obviously, as I said in the intro, you act and write. So does doing both help each other become stronger and the opposite?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I trained as an actor. I went to drama school. You know, we studied a lot of plays and things like that. And, you know, you have to break down a script and really understand it to be able to sort of get into that character and know the story and sort of help be a part of building that world and building that story. And so I think moving into the kind of the writing aspect has really helped me with acting and understanding really like what goes into really crafting every line of dialogue and why this character is saying this, it's, you know, using these words as opposed to some other words or other phrasing. And then I think vice versa, like coming to it from an acting standpoint has really helped me sort of be able to get into the mindset of these characters, especially on a show where, you know, I didn't start until season 4. So I'm coming into a show where we've already established, you know, characters that audiences love. And I have to like, you know, as any writer coming in later, you kind of have to know the voice of the show, know the voice of each of the characters.
Right on. So obviously, if folks haven't picked up, I know some people, common sense ain't so common, and I'm not knocking the audience, but you all obviously have a Australian accent.
Yes.
Now, that's a lovely accent you have. New Jersey?
Austria.
Austria? Well then, good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Let's not.
In Vancouver.
That's right.
So how big of a difference culturally was that for you? Because, well, obviously I think most of who will hear this understand that a lot of things are filmed in Vancouver. There's a lot more opportunities professionally for writers, actors, all that stuff in that area. So culturally, though, how big of a shock was it for you to come from another country?
I think it wasn't too bad. I think for me, the weather has been a big thing. I grew up in Australia where there's lots of sun all of the time, and Vancouver definitely has its rainy months where it's a lot colder. So I think that was the biggest shock for me. But I think mostly like culturally, it's similar to, you know, living in a city in Australia. I didn't find anything too too shocking, to be honest. But yeah, I've really enjoyed living here. I'm a permanent resident now. It's been great for my career. And yeah, hopefully down the track, maybe LA will be the next step. That's where the writer's room is for Virgin River.
Okay. But speaking of back home in Australia, I read, and we know everything online is true, is that you moved around a lot. You were in Sydney, Melbourne, the Gold Coast, Hitherlands,
Yeah.
and whatnot. So is there a reason you bounced around a lot, or?
That would be a question for my mum. I think, yeah, just as children, we sort of just moved around a fair bit. And then most of my time I grew up in Brisbane. So I went to school there for most of the time. I went to university in Queensland. And then after I graduated drama school, I moved down to Sydney and started pursuing acting and stage work there.
Yeah, and that study was for a Bachelor of Theatre Arts and Acting.
Yes.
If I read that right. So I'm guessing theater is more towards your heart as far as the acting side of things, or would you rather be film and TV?
I think theater was always my first love. I think for a lot of, drama kids growing up, you do a lot of stage work to begin with. And I think it's a really great training ground to study, classical and theater. But I miss theater. I haven't done theater for quite some time now, but I'd love to go back. But yeah, I also love film and TV, and that's really what brought me to Canada in the first place.
Now, what was this traveling scholarship I was reading about? You did some things at Second City, which is world renowned. You've been to New York City, LA, different programs. So what was this scholarship, and was it something you got while you were still back home?
Yeah, so a little while after I finished drama school, I applied for this scholarship called the Martin Bequest Traveling Scholarship, which gives you a bit of money sort of to train basically anywhere in the world if you get into the program. And yeah, I was very lucky to be one of the successful applicants. So I got to go to New York for the summer, and I studied at the Atlantic Acting School, which was phenomenal. It was a really beautiful, wonderful, intense course. And then I went over to Chicago. I did an immersive program at Second City doing improv comedy and also sketch comedy writing. And then I went over to LA. I did a few meetings there with some of the, the casting directors and people over there and some agents and things like that. And I did some private classes there as well. So yeah, it was a really fantastic experience, and I got to really kind of delve right into acting and comedy, and yeah, it was really fantastic. I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
And for 2 out of the 3 stops, folks, both New York and Chicago, what she won't tell you is that she had an undergrad in pizza. Since they're two famous cities for their pizza, but we won't go there.
The deep dish was very good. I had a really good deep dish pizza.
Yes, exactly. And that would be Chi-Town. But you also, from what I read, were a core member and social media manager of the Women in Theatre and Screen, which is in Australia, but also a committee member for Equality Diversity Committee. So what are those programs actually?
Yeah, so I've always been very, tried to be very involved and very passionate about diversity and women in theatre and screen and, gender diversity as well. And so when I worked with Women in Theatre and Screen, it was kind of a volunteer collective. We all came together, other women who were theatre artists in Sydney, and we tried to promote the work of, other women working in theatre. We also put on a festival that showcased a lot of women in theatre and diverse women. And so, yeah, that was just really just trying to promote women in theatre, especially at a time when I think a lot of leadership roles and a lot of jobs and things were kind of focused on particularly white men. And so statistically, we were just trying to find a way to promote more women in theatre. And then the Equity Diversity Committee was part of the union in Australia, which was the Media Entertainment Arts Alliance. So I was just part of that sort of group of people also just trying to promote diversity and other initiatives and just giving voice to people of diverse cultural backgrounds.
Well, speaking of that, or I should say, over the years, have you noticed an improvement for equality on both sides of the spectrum?
I think so. I think there's a lot of work still to be had, and a lot of, I think we've got a long way to go still, but I do think it's definitely improving. I think the way that we see representations on our stages and screens is definitely a lot better. I think the next step is just making sure that we see more of that diversity in leadership roles and the people who are kind of creating the projects and hiring people, and just making sure that's sort of represented across, all the different intersectionalities. I think that's really important, but I do think that it's improving.
Because the biggest one I at least heard of recently, that was an argument. I don't know if it's an argument or debate or however you want to call it, but within this topic is equal rights for pay. Do you think the equality has balanced out for equal pay for both sides?
Oh, right. I'm not sure 100%, but I do obviously firmly believe that, women and men should be paid equally if they're doing the same work or the same level of work, for sure. I think statistically maybe we're not quite there across the board, but I'm hoping that we're kind of moving to a more equal and equitable situation.
Okay. So back to the Virgin River, if I may. I had read that the episode from last year that you wrote was hitting close to home, as far as, you were planning your wedding and all that fun stuff. And they talk about miscarriage and just the ups and downs of that relationship. So what can you tell me, are we going to still have that as a running theme on this season? And how intertwined did you do your personal life for this year?
Yeah, I think for that episode in particular, which was season 5, episode 9, Angel's Peak, which was the episode I wrote. At that time, I was engaged. I was planning my own wedding and marriage. And, we were definitely in those early phases of discussing, whether we were going to have a family and whether that was the next step for us. So I think having that in my life at the same time that I was writing this episode about our two, main romantic protagonists who are engaged, who suffered a devastating miscarriage, and, Mel's at a point where she's feeling like she can't do it again. She can't go through pregnancy and the loss again. So, yeah, it's something about it just really hit close to my heart. And, I definitely have people in my world who have gone through similar things. I did a lot of research, listened to a lot of podcasts about women who have gone through that. So I really tried to kind of use a lot of sort of empathy to be able to understand that situation and feel really close to it. And I did find it very moving. So I tried my best to really kind of honor that experience that women and their partners go through when they suffer that kind of a loss.
So, as you mentioned earlier, the whole season's written and you guys put a bow on things from your aspect, later last year after the strike ended and all that fun stuff. But what's the next step? Are you guys going to be there on site for changes? How does that work?
Yeah, so season 5, which was the first episode I wrote, that dropped on Netflix in September. And then we had 2 kind of holiday special episodes that came out end of November. And so now we've written season 6. Season 6 should be shooting this year. We'll be able to go on set for our episodes. And then usually what happens is you do a lot of prep meetings. So you'll talk to the art department and props and clearances and sort of just look at how all these departments come together to sort of bring the story of that episode to life. And sometimes, things come up. And so you might need need changes, and so as the writers, we obviously work with all the departments and the cast to put through any changes that might, need to happen, just so that we can kind of get the best product on the screens.
Now, as far as how many episodes are they scheduled for this year?
We've got 10 episodes in season 6.
So how does that divvied up? Is it, okay, you're going to do 4, somebody's going to do 4, somebody, or how's the work divvied up?
Yeah, so there's a whole writer's room. There's a whole team of writers on the show. And then we have the head writer, which is the showrunner, Patrick Strawn-Smith. And as we sort of progress through the writer's room and we're sort of blue skying the season and talking about, the journeys of these characters throughout the season, as we get closer to each episode by episode, the showrunner will give a script assignment and will say, IIdiko, you're writing this episode. Great. I go off and, it is a real team effort. We kind of break down each episode together as a group. We figure out what the stories are. We figure out how to outline it all. And then the writers will go off and they'll write their outline, get notes from the showrunner, the EPs and Netflix, and then go off and do the script.
And with that being said, because I always ask the actors and stuff I talk to about, because you always hear the script is gospel, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What every word on these pages is, end of story, this is what we're doing. But with you doing both acting and writing, I would ask, are you more open to suggestion, being you have a different perspective compared to most writers?
Yeah, I think so. I think for TV, there is an element of that collaborative process. And I think the writers work really hard and they put a lot of thought into everything that they write. But I do think, it is open to, sometimes an actor might feel a certain way about a certain line. And so it is open for discussion. And there can be that sort of back and forth dialogue to, at the end of the day, it's just trying to make the show the best that it can. And as writers, as the showrunner as well, we're always kind of editing and rewriting the work, like even in the editing process, even while it's being shot, even while it's being edited, it's still sort of in a way being rewritten up until the point that it makes it on screen.
Yeah, because especially in a case like this, like Virgin River, different long-term shows, like you said, you came in first season 4, but there's a certain point when folks are playing the same characters over a long period of time, they get that feel of the character. So that's why I wanted to ask. Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's really important that that everyone feels an ownership in their work and they feel like they can be creative and collaborate. So I think as long as everyone's all coming from a process or from a place of wanting to make the show the best that it can be, then I think it's great for everyone to sort of collaborate and have those conversations.
So now that things are in the can, per se, while they get ready to shoot and all that fun stuff, what's next for you?
Well, I'm hoping that Netflix gives us the green light for a season 7. We're waiting to hear on that. And if that happens, then hopefully we'll be back in the writer's room soon and working on the next season. But at the moment, I'm just working on my own projects and auditioning and preparing for the shoot.
Right on. So where is the best spot people can find you on social media and such currently?
Probably Instagram is the best one for me, IIdiko Susany. And you can also find me on IMDb.
Right on. Ms. Susany, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions, or during our particular watch-alongs? Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Hi, this is Adrienne Barbeau, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.